Infinite Warfare was the right game at the wrong time. It might not be the most pro-consumer game on the market, but it sure was and still is a head and shoulders above what we saw with COD World War II and Black Ops 4, and even Modern Warfare Remastered in some respects when it comes to the ability for a player to actually obtain the loot in the game. But we're going to keep this video simple. We're going to be looking back on Infinite Warfare, and basically you're going to listen to me tangent about something that's been on my mind ever since the original trailer for this game came out. The gameplay you're seeing here is 4 matches I played today, of varying quality, but I had fun in each one of them, and I thought, well, this will be good enough for this video because this is going to be pretty off the cuff, like most of my videos, minus this giant fucking script in front of me. Either way, let's start off with post-launch content. This is really easy to sum up. New and interesting weapons were given to everyone in a fair way that further incentivized the Season Pass purchase without requiring it. If you had the Season Pass, you got all of the new post-launch weapons directly added to your inventory. If you didn't have the Season Pass, you had to complete a challenge for that weapon. The challenge could be, get 100 kills with a pistol with an accessory and an attachment on it or something along those lines, and then you'd unlock a new weapon. That's miles above what Black Ops 4, COD World War II, and even Modern Warfare Remastered did. Go before that, it kicks Black Ops 3's ass and Advanced Warfare's ass, without even really trying too hard. It's a pretty simple idea. Infinite Warfare was the last Call of Duty I bought a Season Pass for, because since then, there hasn't been that type of incentive to own one. Season Passes are kind of becoming an archaic practice, but if you're going to do it, at least, sweeten the pot a little bit, and Infinite Warfare did that. The pro-consumer label that I want to put on Infinite Warfare is slightly stained by the fact that you had to buy Infinite Warfare in order to play Modern Warfare Remastered, and it was a long time before MWR became a standalone title. That's worth mentioning because although it didn't really bother me, it's still kind of a big deal. As a Call of Duty fan that was excited to see what Infinity Ward was going to be bringing to the sci-fi FPS department, MWR tagging along was nothing but an awesome bonus for me. For $100 US, I got more with Infinite Warfare than I did with any other Call of Duty game. Because I got Infinite Warfare, Modern Warfare Remastered, and a Season Pass for $100, whereas now $100 gets you a Call of Duty and the Season Pass, and the Season Passes aren't that good, and I don't even think some of the Call of Duties are that good. And back in the day when Infinite Warfare was released, it was constantly made fun of and criticized online, even by the larger members in the COD community, which I, to this day, find both sad and a little funny. Infinite Warfare did so many things better than COD games before it, and frankly after it. And yet, YouTubers and the average Joe alike would throw baseless criticism at it for problems it didn't even have or that weren't that big of a deal. For instance, Infinite Warfare introduced variants, which everyone was very scared about. We'll talk about that more. But there was a variant of one of the better assault rifles in the game that claimed infinite damage range as one of the perks for using this variant. This variant cost a lot of in-game currency and would have taken either a long time to grind for, or you could whip out your credit card and get it really fast. Like, as fast as you're willing to spend money, really. This started a lot of controversy though, but really for no reason. And why do I say that? Well, the variant that increased the damage range also lowered the fire rate, therefore decreasing the gun's damage per second. Plus, the infinite 4-shot kill range the gun toted isn't that useful when the base gun kills in 4 shots at most ranges anyway, and you would be hard-pressed to benefit from the range increase on most of the maps and most of your engagements and gunfights. It's just, you'd be hard-pressed to find a range where you need infinite damage range with this gun. So it had a lower DPS, and the range increase really wasn't that practical. But when this game was coming out, people used that gun as the poster child for why the game is going to be pay to win and broken at launch. And there was also an SMG that gave you health every time you got a kill. That was in the beta, and I believe I used that gun in the beta. And when I used it, I was like, this is not that useful. You die so fast in this game. Like, triggering your health regen when you get a kill isn't going to save you if you're taking bullets because it immediately halts your health regeneration. This is also sad for another reason. Because the Call of Duty community wrote the game off so early in the life cycle, they weren't around to tackle other weapons that did need nerfs and buffs. They were so busy following the common consensus, they couldn't even get mad at the right things. They didn't stick around to make the game better and to provide feedback. But then again, I remember some of those same YouTubers immediately getting mad because one of the supply drop RNG guns in Advanced Warfare wasn't very strong. I believe when they added the M16 into Advanced Warfare, it needed a buff, and so just about every YouTuber, like Elite Shot and Drifter, were like, oh no, this RNG weapon isn't strong enough, it needs a buff, but yet they weren't around during Infinite Warfare to say, hey, the Cyclops needs a nerf. If you've played the game, you know what the Cyclops is. I'm not gonna go find footage of it, but that gun definitely needed a nerf. And the label that so many people gave it was pay to win. And that couldn't honestly be farther from the truth. People were so hung up over the horrible variant balance in Advanced Warfare that they couldn't look at IW's loot and variant system objectively. Yes, some weapons were annoying and needed some balancing, but that doesn't make the game pay to win. In fact, that just basically defines the Call of Duty series in general. Some things need buffs and nerfs. And yes, they do put a bigger chore ahead of them by adding in a shit ton of variants that were probably unnecessary for the enjoyment of the game, but just because some needed a tweak and some killed maybe a little too fast at the wrong range, that doesn't mean the game was pay to win. And the TTK could only be described as fast, like stupid fast. It was like Call of Duty Ghost level fast. Base weapons and low-tier variants still proved to be more than useful. They were a little boring, but they were more than useful. And for the YouTubers and gamers that did like Infinite Warfare, mostly found themselves gravitating towards weapons that did simple things like reduced recoil that stacked with foregrip. Which is another thing, people said that Infinite Warfare's foregrip didn't work, and the reason the foregrip wasn't that strong was one, it becomes a crutch attachment in every Call of Duty game, and two, the reason foregrip wasn't that strong was because you could stack foregrip with variants that further reduced the recoil. So the big pay-to-win argument goes out the window when the cheapest, most easy-to-obtain variants that I have just hundreds of and received hundreds of them, those are the practical variants that do nice things like reduce idle sway, lower recoil, increase the amount of magazines you have with it. It wasn't rocket science, but I guess COD YouTubers just didn't want to put in that extra little bit into a COD game. You know, like a game in the series they've based their channels around, it's complicated. A lot of the more harder to obtain weapon variants would give you interesting gimmicks that were mostly situational and just downright impractical. And some of the variants just switched the gun into a different style of gun. Not better or worse, just different. And not to mention the fact that this game just gave you in-game currency, it gave you daily login bonuses, and if you had the season pass, you got even more daily login bonuses. So you could load in the game and get 30 keys or 100 salvage or 4 supply drops, and that was awesome. That really made it feel worthwhile to hop online every day. Not to mention each day had a daily challenge. What a concept. But no, people back then when the game came out were mad at the lack of leaderboards at launch, which is hilarious now. I mean, where are those types of complaints when it comes to Black Ops 4? I mean, leaderboards are nice, but they don't change the way a game plays, and IW, in my opinion, played pretty damn great. What kind of things were great in my opinion? Well, I thought the class creation was great. The clearly defined perks and what they countered and what countered them was great. The UI was great. The mission teams were great, and double XP tokens. Oh, I love double XP tokens. At the end of a match, if you did really well, let's say you got 12,000 XP, let's just say, you could then, activate the double XP token on that match after the match is over, and then it doubles your end of match XP. So you don't activate the double XP and then go into a game and hope you do well and maximize it. You wait to see what match would be a good idea to activate the double XP token on. And those are pretty abundantly given in supply drops. I have always had at least 12 in my inventory. It was great during double XP weekends to get like 50,000 XP from a domination match and then double that, 100 XP. But if I did poorly and only got like 13,000, then maybe save the double XP key for a different match. Oh, and best of all, ranking up was actually useful, making those tokens useful because you actually got weapons for prestiging. That's right, the classic weapons. Every other prestige gave you a choice of their classic weapon roster. Now you can disagree with the choices they gave you, but the concept is rock solid, and I'm disappointed that the classic weapon idea hasn't been expanded upon yet. I wanted it to be expanded upon in Infinite Warfare itself, but no dice. And I mean, Infinity Ward came up with this idea back in COD Ghost with the Golden Knife and PDW for reaching 5th and then 10th prestige. That was, kind of lackluster, but I can't think of any other Call of Duty games that properly reward you for prestiging. Prestiging just feels like a nuisance at this point. Some sort of like, hey, I had a lot of time in this game type of token of bragitude, but back then, all the way in the distant year of 2016, you were given a Create a Class slot and then a classic weapon for every other prestige. It would just go back and forth in between Create a Class slot, classic weapon. Amazing idea. I hope we see more of that soon. I could go on about how amazing Infinite Warfare's multiplayer was handled because after a certain point in the life cycle, the developers just seemed to go into overdrive, just constantly incentivizing me to hop back onto the game. It was amazing to watch. Problems were getting fixed quickly, people's complaints were being squashed left and right, and after a certain point, people that hated the game had no legs to stand on, and some of them even made videos saying that, well, I was kinda wrong and they've actually been doing really good by their player base. And throughout the life cycle, I personally experienced, and this isn't, like 100%, there were definitely bad days and there were definitely some things that needed to be fixed at different times, but for the most part, I experienced smooth gameplay, quality connections, snappy feeling gunplay, silky movement, and best of all, nobody was dabbing. I'm kidding, but really, despite some strange cosmetics, Infinity Ward took Infinite Warfare's theme pretty seriously, like throughout most of the MP maps and overall aesthetics. There was some funny stuff, but for the most part, it seems like they were really committed to the tone of the game. And I think that Bungie has a small credit, like in the credits of Infinite Warfare. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they have a small credit, and I think they had a little bit of like a hand in the design of Infinite Warfare, and it really shows. Like, you guys know that not just the development teams you see on the box are the ones that worked on the game. Like, if you're under Activision, chances are you're helping with multiple Activision products and projects. So I think Bungie had a little bit of hand in Infinite Warfare. I believe so. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, I do, however, have some complaints. Some playstyles and weapons were annoying to face in MP, to say the least. People flying everywhere with the synaptic rig, people sliding into others with shotguns. You see it in my gameplay here, probably. The people that they run up and then they just hit slide and start shotgunning you are incredibly annoying, especially if you haven't been playing the game in a while and you're a little bit rusty, a little bit slow. These types of players come out and just clothesline you. It's incredibly irritating. And also trip mines and cryo mines on walls and shit, and phase shift, oh my god. FTL jump, phase shift, reactive armor. I made a video said where I said like the worst thing in the game is the reactive armor. And I still kind of stand by that, because inconsistencies in damage, input and output, it just makes shooters annoying, and so having a rig ability to just basically be like, hey, now I tank a bunch of bullets. It's like, ugh. It wasn't needed, and this game honestly would have been so much better without any specialist or rig type thing at all, and they could have just gone with customizable characters like in Advanced Warfare, and I think that would have been a lot better. It's not as annoying as some things in Black Ops 3 and Black Ops 4, but they were still unnecessary additions in some cases. Other cases, they were kind of fun and surprisingly well balanced, despite being also annoying. I don't know, I'm still mixed on it, but I do know I would have preferred a lack of that. The biggest problem, I would say, though, is that I found just about every map in the game to be forgettable. And I think for the pace of this game's movement and gunplay, Infinity Ward should have gone back to the Call of Duty Ghost style maps, because really fast movement on Call of Duty Ghost size maps would be great. I still want to see a 3D movement COD with larger MP maps. And to be honest, the gameplay did fatigue me when it came to the pacing of the game. Fast rushing gameplay on simple maps didn't do much for me after a while, and it's one of the reasons I absolutely regret this, but I never was able to make it to max prestige. Because after Advanced Warfare and after Black Ops 3, I was very fatigued on fast-paced simple map COD gameplay, and Infinite Warfare brought more of that instead of trying to shake that up. It's the biggest stain on this game. There are more problems, but that's really not what this video is about. Yes, Infinite Warfare had problems like every COD game does, and no one should call this a perfect COD game. That would be ridiculous. But throwing a game to the side in the trash out of relevancy because you think everyone else might be right about it is plain stupid. I mean, some people still hold on to their judgments that they created from the first trailer. Why? People were mad on the first trailer. Like, think about that. The first trailer. We hadn't even seen what the heads-up display looked like, and people decided this game was bad. Infinite Warfare was a good game at the wrong time. It cared about its player base, and it didn't deserve all of the hate that it got. It deserved, actual constructive criticism for sure, but it didn't deserve the hate. And this is nothing. This is to say nothing of the amazing campaign and pretty damn good zombies coming from a not really zombie player that didn't even play all the maps. I didn't hate any of it. And really, common consensus is an important tool that we as people utilize on a daily basis for mostly good. A lot of the things we have a common consensus about are common for good reason. But in this case, common consensus failed an otherwise great product, great sci-fi game, a great Call of Duty game. Overall, just a great entertainment experience. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, like the video. If you hate Infinite Warfare, give me a reason why. Maybe you can surprise me and actually give me a decent reason, because there are some reasons to dislike the game. Lack of leaderboards and pay to win really aren't either of them. Anyway, see you when I see you. Goodbye.